here, and the topic that we have today is the quiet threshold. There are changes, there are great changes, there are drastic changes which occur in our life, which move the needle in us. Now today we're going to talk about such changes, and we're going to try to define probably the vice principal of this college, before try to measure like certain things, we're going to define those things in my talk. And I would like to start with a story. And this story actually happened with me. We all love playing cricket, and I used to love it too when I was much younger. And we were at our native place playing cricket. I was batting, and if everyone knows the rule of the game, whoever hits the ball and the ball goes outside a defined area, the person has to go and get it. Now the ball was thrown and I hit the ball. I guess I was good at it because the ball soared first of all and scaled the wall, which was a very tall wall, and over to the other side. Now all of them raised their hands, shrugged their shoulders, you have to get it. So I said, why not? Okay. Now I looked at the wall was like really tall, as I said, 10, 12 feet, and I said I would need help. So the guys, lifted me and pushed me onto the other side. I landed onto the other side and I heard some barks. I was looking at the ball and I was about to retrieve it. Then I saw dogs. Not one, not two, a whole pack of them. They were advancing at me at a pace I couldn't define and was, against the law of physics. I didn't know physics then, but still, I could figure out that it was really coming fast. So there I was looking at a pack of dogs coming at me, charging is the right word, roaring and charging, barking and charging at me, and I was looking at them. The ball was just near me, and there I was like really there looking at those dogs. The first thought, I looked at a way out. The only way was the wall behind, because the gate was really far, and if I had to reach that gate, I would have passed through them, which was like impossible. So as I said, the wall was my only no plan. In fact, those were the days when you executed first, planned later. So that was just another day like that. So my exit was behind me. I had to, go onto that wall and go on the other side. Interestingly, just as we have toppings over pizza today, those days and even now, like we have glass shards placed on the wall to make it difficult for any intruder to get in or get out. Now that made it even more interesting, because what that meant was not only I had to climb that wall, but I had to, peel myself very well like an onion before, I got onto the other side. All those thoughts came on to me like, would I make it? I have never scaled a wall, talk less about a wall which was so, tall. And to get onto the other side without anything, I would fall. I don't even know how I'm going to jump down. So many things. And if I stood there, the dogs would have a good meal. So I was just calculating, and I said, maybe that's the only way. And I started running. So you can imagine this very wonderful cinematic situation wherein the dogs are barking, closing in on me. I'm taking the ball, picking up the ball and running towards the wall, trying to a rough fall. So I got scraped all over, jumped, I had the peeling done, got over to the other side, and I somehow, I've never done it ever after that. I don't know what made me do that. The good news is I am still alive, in this TEDx talk, giving this talk. That means that we did very well that day. But it also moved something in me that day, apart from the bruises on my body. What did it move? Now, this is something which I, made in fact, when I look back, that time I did not have a proper language for what happened then. But now, when I have to talk about it, I can define it in 3 words: edge, mask, and stand. So what I experienced, I could formulate in 3 words: edge, mask, and stand. Let me explain a little more. So that's the wall, the same kind of wall which I experienced that day, and that's what I call the edge. Edge happens to you, and since we are talking about quiet thresholds, edge happens to you when you have no way out, when there's no exit plan, when you have to do a thing. Now, it could be a layoff, it could be illness, it could be loss of a death, or death of a loved one. Now, all these qualify to be the edge. Now, that's where it begins. How we adapt is the mask. For me, it was scaling that wall, climbing that wall. That is how we adapt to a situation. And that's where the mask happens. Now, what kind of mask? Why do I call it mask? Because trust me, that day, I was so scared. If my teeth could come out and chatter, they would have done that. But it was chattering inside. Every heartbeat felt like as if I had Dolby speakers fit around me, and they were all pounding together. My heart was beating so hard. I know so many reactions at the same time, actions and reactions at the same time. So I just wore a mask of fearlessness, of courage, of trying to do something or wanting to do something. And that's what I call, and that's why I call it a mask. The next that we have is the stand. Now the stand is something what the incident does to you, or what we come out after, or who we are after that incident, or what that incident rubs on to you. So in this, I came out much fearless, I would say confident. I could then say I have done this. I could add so many things. I could brag about it to my fellow friends and later students, and even to you today. So this is what the stand did. Yeah. So again, when I talk about it, there are things I like to talk about. As I said, I formulated that into the edge mask stand framework. Whether it's a framework, that's up to all of you. But the edge, mask, and stand keeps happening. The same incident, now that was a shorter cycle. Now, me chased by the dogs, going over the wall, and coming out okay and a refined person. But we all have such edges, masks, and stands all throughout our lives. As I said, it could be loss of jobs, it could be a promotion, it could be birth of a baby, it could be, again, layoffs, it could be death, it could be illness. So these edges actually define us. They move the needle within us. So when we talk of the edge, mask, and the stand, I call them the pattern of life because they keep repeating themselves from one to another. Now I like to talk about the edge. The edge. Now each of these stances, I would like to talk about it a little more. I'd like to take up a story which happened to me in Africa. I was in a gated community. I used to stay in a very secure community, a gated community with houses lined up. And we rarely heard about terrorism or armed robbery or anything of that sort. But that morning was very different. One fine morning, as I was drinking or sipping coffee and I was looking out of the balcony, I saw some figures on the roof. And as they went onto a roof, one of them would go inside the house. They would start attacking the inmates of the house, and then I would hear shrieks. So I'm talking about armed robbery in progression, wherein in progress, wherein the armed robbers went into the house, they started attacking the inmates of the house. At the end of it, I came to know that people were killed. And they were slowly closing in on to my house, the place where I was staying. You would not believe the kind of thing that I got. I believe that is the time when I got superpowers, because never after that have I done those things and I can imagine those things. I quickly slid down on the staircase. I took many flights together. Then I did some acrobatics which I would never even try, even thinking today that I did that day. And I was able to hide in a place wherein those guys wouldn't discover me. The story which followed is a different story, but that is the edge that I'm talking about. As I said, many people got killed that day, and I could have been one of them. Now that incident really changed me. How? Because I really started valuing life. I started being grateful. I started being thankful for small things in life. And this is what an edge can do for you. It changes your perspective. So when I see even small acts today, I'm always grateful. I'm always thankful for the things that have happened to me. I could be thankful for a small meal. I could see a butterfly and I could be thankful. So that's what an edge does. So that was a very powerful edge which moved not only a needle, in fact the whole perspective of life for me. I wish that incident happens with no one here, but that is what I think I should take away, I should give as takeaway from this talk, that we should be appreciative of small things in life. We should appreciate life. We should appreciate people who are in your life. And we should always never look away from the things that they have done for you. So this is something which I talk about in Edge. This is the mask. Now for this I have another story from my life. This is one of my friends. We did many things together when I was in office. He was serving a senior office and he ran for elections. I wouldn't like to name the person, but we were very close, and we were at a party the previous evening celebrating the finishing of elections, or the culmination of elections and the counting. And the next morning was when they were about to reveal the results. And the evening before, we talked, we dined, we laughed, we cracked jokes like we had done so many years. And then the results happened. He won, of course. He was elevated to a very senior office. And then I went to see him. Everything had changed. From the way his office behaved, the way he behaved, in fact, everything had changed. His talk, his walk, the way he addressed people. And this is where something shifted in me. I started thinking that a person who I had dined with, talked with just about 12 or 16 hours before, how could that person change so much? How could that person be so different? It was as if it was a very different person inside the person that I saw. Again, the takeaway in this: absolute power, corrupts absolutely. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you have power, when you have a role, when you have a title, that power in that title or role absolutely corrupts. So again, I've also seen people take their titles or roles so seriously that it becomes a cage for them. It could be any office. What happens is when they are in that role, it defines them, it cages them. My takeaway from this aspect, the mask aspect, that's also being covered in my book, The Boardroom Whisperer, wherein I talk about masks extensively. So my takeaway from the mask is that let no mask cover you. Let no mask define you. Let no role, define who you are. Now, you might ask, how does this really apply to me as a student? As students, we take up and we will take up roles as we step into the corporate world. You become, first interns, then take up different roles depending on the different careers that you have chosen. As you define or take up those roles, let those roles not cage you really. Think out of the box, think outside your domains. Do things which don't cage you or which don't put you in a box. So that's the story I have for the mask. Again, the takeaway there is roles are temporary. And the third, the stand, when we really find ourselves. This is the part where I landed onto the other side of the wall and I said, I've done it, And this is where we will stand at different edges, after different edges masks, we will stand. For this part, I have a story, and that's related to AI. I'm part of different deployments, different AI deployments in different parts of the world. One thing which I have seen, which is happening at a faster rate, every day I see it more. Today we are using technologies, we have a disruption, we have emerging technologies, and we have disruptions in every sphere of life. Now, technology is really twining into us. But what it's also doing to humans is they are making them quieter. Today, I don't find lively discussions because our ChatGPT has answers ready before even the discussions begin. I don't find interactions happening because Teams has already prompted some prompts. The technology is really coming into your minds. When the radio came in, when the television came in, when the computers came in and the mobiles came in, they all stepped one step closer to you. Now this is technology which is entering into us, because this has come into a space wherein it has entered into our mind. With brain interfaces coming in, they'll integrate with our brains. That's the next step that we are really looking at. Now what will happen is that it'll be twined with your brains there. If 20, 25 years before someone would have told me that two friends would be sitting in the same room with a box in their hands, not talking to each other, not looking at each other, I wouldn't have believed them. But that is what is happening today. Now, this is where I would urge, this is where I would appeal, this is where I would beg each one of you, as you integrate these technologies, as you make these technologies part of your life, don't forget to stay human. Don't forget to be yourself. Don't forget that you are the final decision taker. Because the trend today is to just have AI take care of everything. That kind of attitude wouldn't work. It shouldn't work. So I appeal, because this is the generation which would deal with this technology much more than the older generation has dealt with. And I see that they have an attitude of giving it all away to AI, which is dangerous to say the least. So I appeal again, and I restate the same thing again. Please stay human. And on that note, I'd like to end my talk. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. Again, stay human and stay rooted. Thanks.